Okay.
Well, good afternoon. How's everyone doing today? Good. I've got a little bit less of a voice. I'm not used to talking for a whole hour, and I haven't fully recovered from earlier. But terribly excited. Could hardly sleep last night thinking about what your business ideas were. How many of you had some time to actually plan something out? Yeah. Oh, okay, great. Quick show of hands. Who? Regardless of whether you did a positioning statement, how many of you thought about an idea that you wanted to? Okay, good. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Perfect. Because in a little while, I'm going to try and pick that idea out of yourself. So today, we're going to be focused primarily on customer discovery, which is what you would do after you've gone through your positioning statement and have your idea fleshed out. We're also going to dive into what we call minimum viable product, which is a true way of testing that idea on real customers and people. And if time allows, I threw one extra thing in, which is showing you how you can model your business with 9 easy building blocks and be able to describe it to virtually anyone in simple terms. That sound exciting? Yeah. All right. Okay. Well, let's. Did I do this right? This button?
Should work, yeah. Other way, maybe.
Ah, okay. There you go. All right, we've already asked position statement. I'm gonna read out one here from Amazon, because this is a real good example. Large company, condensed down into less than a paragraph. So for worldwide web users who enjoy books, Amazon.com is a retail bookseller that provides instant access to over 1.1 million books. Unlike traditional book retailers, Amazon.com provides an extraordinary convenience, low price, and comprehensive selection. That is 19 years old. Who would have thought that now they're everything? But they started out just with books, very clear, very condensed. Their positioning statement will have evolved quite a bit. Now when Amazon would talk, it would include seems like virtually everything under the sun. But this is what you're really trying to get to with your business itself, is being able to very clearly articulate something, no matter how complex, into something that almost anyone would understand. The next one I'm going to click on to, have a read and see if you can guess what this company is. This is their actual positioning statement.
Harley Davidson.
Pretty obvious, right? But it's, positioning statement really is speaking to, you're trying to speak to your true audience. If you are not someone, a macho wannabe, they're telling you right off the bat, this is not your company or your business. So they're very focused on who it is that they want to speak to. So as I said before, we're at this stage right now that we're going to be at customer discovery, because we're trying to figure out if the idea that you have can actually be validated by the customer that you want to sell to. And the reason that you see, the little line pointing back is this process is an unknown for how long it's going to take. We don't move ahead into the next step of our business until we've actually got the fit between our idea and what a customer wants. Now, sometimes you can go in this loop for what seems forever until you get it right. Other times you get really close first time off. And plenty of times people go along in that circle and sort of start to realize that they might have the wrong idea, because the majority of the people they think are their customers don't really agree with that idea, or aren't willing to part the dollars necessary for it. So customer discovery is all about testing your hypothesis, making sure that the customer has that same problem and that the solution fits it, and understanding the dynamics that go into that particular market. Validation point, that's coming from a customer's point of view, so you're testing directly on them. But you're also, in the validation part, making sure that the dollars make sense. Like you can prove you have a great idea if everyone likes it and wants it, but what if they're not willing to part with the amount of money that you need to make that particular idea profitable? Now, that's not a failure. You have a really good idea that people want, but at this particular point in time, they won't exchange the money that you need in order for it to make sense as a business model. That's where validation differs from discovery. So you have to make sure that it's profitable and that there's enough demand out there to continue and sustain it. Does that make sense so far? Okay. And we're not, I'll skip past these because we're not at the customer creation level right now. So back to discovery, testing the hypothesis. Who is that customer really? So is it the customer that you thought in your positioning statement when you identified it in the top line, or maybe it's someone different? Are we sure that that's the problem that they have? And then finally, are we going to be able to make money at it? So I'm just going to skip through these: testing problems, testing solution, and just look at the part here, pivot or proceed. That's a real important part. You got to put ego and you got to put it off to the side sometimes when you're creating a business, because we can fall in love with our idea, and it's great to fall in love with things, but falling in love with an idea and trying to force it into a business is the wrong way to go. This is where a lot of people will spend their time trying to convince everyone that they need to change their mind, where the easier way is for you as an entrepreneur to adjust your way of thinking, and this sometimes involves pivoting, changing so you're aligning with your customer, and then either proceeding in that direction, or if you have it right, continuing on in the business journey.
So John, just to summarize, the customer's discovery part is essentially you going and trying to talk to customers, or who you think your customer would be. Now that's a little bit more difficult for us in tourism because, of course, now is not necessarily the season, but maybe you do have a winter business and you could go and talk to customers at Sun Peaks and say, would you be interested in this? And then from that, you take their information and incorporate what you learn into your idea. And then hopefully you'll reach a point where you either proceed, continue on with what you're doing, or you pivot, as we discussed last class. The idea of you either shift your angle of attack, or you shift your idea to something else, or you maybe tragically abandon, depending on how it goes. But ultimately it's about talking to customers, okay?
100%.
So it's research in an informal observatory kind of form, okay?
Now, if I can steal a pen from you.
You bet. You want a board pen?
Yeah, for a board.
Yeah.
Okay, what I'd like to do now,
Pick your weapon.
okay, we'll go with blue. I want to get some ideas on the board of some of the businesses that you're thinking of, because it'll be easier when we go through these next number of slides to be trying to talk specifically and getting you thinking about how could you test and how could you do discovery on these items, instead of me giving you examples from tech companies or others that might not relate to your tourism. So who wants to start with an idea? And we'll just make some real basic notes. Okay, who's not scared to say theirs? I know you put your hand up, so you got an idea. What's your name?
My name's
yes.
Quinn.
Okay, Quinn.
Me
We got a double point.
You're next now.
First.
Quinn, what's your idea?
It's a board game cafe in downtown area.
Okay, board game cafe, downtown. Downtown. Okay, behind you, sir, what's your name?
Yash.
Yash? What's your idea?
Opening up a restaurant, or at least a cafe setup, catering to serving African food. So not just one particular country in Africa, but across the board.
Can you make out my chicken scratch?
What was that?
Can you make out?
Can we read his writing?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yes, they've tried reading my writing, so.
Okay.
Mine is worse, don't worry about it.
Yeah, I got 13 years of education if you count kindergarten, so I didn't get as far as you did. Let's go for two more if we can.
I'm food bike tour.
A food?
A food bike tour, so taking a bike and going from spot to spot.
To restaurant or somewhere to eat,
Restaurant
or-
to restaurant,
okay.
brewery to brewery.
Okay. All right, and who wants to give the final one? look at it this way, you're gonna get, oh, you ready? And what's your name?
My name is Gagan and
Gagan.
my is glamping with mountain biking.
Glamping or camping?
Glamping.
Ah, what's a glamping?
Luxurious camping.
It's luxurious camping.
Glamorous camping. Glamping. Very hot right now.
I've used a new word, or learned a new word, glamp,
Yeah.
ping, and what'd you say? So,
With mountain biking, like e-biking, so that anyone can go on mountain.
I got an e-bike last year, I can go anywhere, it's wonderful. E-biking, okay, good. So you 4 people that put your names ahead on this stuff, you're gonna probably get a lot further than some of your compadres because we're gonna, as a collective, be able to talk a little bit about these in examples. Thank you for this very much. Okay, we got some ideas on the table, which is perfect. So first part of discovery is just realizing, okay, it makes sense to you, but what about your customers? I threw family and friends into there. Anyone want to guess why I put family and friends?
You should get them to test your product first.
Okay, anyone else?
They're willing to give you like their honest opinion.
All right, okay. You don't have to pay them. Okay. Fine.
They have the patience to listen to you.
Yeah. So should we value the opinions we get on our business model from what we get from our family and friends?
Not exclusively.
Yeah, it might be biased sometimes as well.
Okay,
When your mom's gonna say anything, it was
I think not exclusively, but yeah.
but you're good people, right?
Yeah.
Or in some cases.
But your friends and family are likely just like you, so if you think the idea is good, you want to reach out to different types of people.
Oh, you've never met my family. They don't think I came from them at all. They think all right, here's a shocker for you. Friends and family in business modeling count exactly for 0. Is that a harsh statement? Now, it's not that their opinions don't count, because they are opinions, but in the world of business, we always remove friends and families because there can be biases in a lot of ways. They could be the negative ones and always tell you you're not going to make it, right? And maybe are a little bit worried that way. Or you can have the others that will nod their head and say, that's a wonderful idea. And, you know, you leave the room and say, can't you believe what they're doing? So friends and family from a business point of view, not from the point of view of how we go to them for advice or other things, is you can share your ideas. But what you can't do is you can't take the opinions that come from them on your business model and actually count them in your process of discovery and validation. Is that fair, even if you don't like it? Can you understand sort of why we do it? So if you booked a meeting with me like people do at the generator, and they come with their idea, and they've told me about how all their friends love it and all their family, I end up being the person that kind of pops that balloon and bubble. Because it doesn't mean their idea is bad, it just means that they haven't really started true discovery and validation yet. So don't just realize that you're going to actually have to go out and talk to people that have no idea who you are in order to do it properly and stand the best chance of success. And we'll get into more of those reasons after. And then the next point I put down is you got to leave the building. You can't do discovery here in a classroom. No one can talk to you about discovery. You actually have to physically leave and get out in front of the people that you believe want your product or service. There is no other way around it. Every business goes to their customer. Every successful business has done it in that manner. If you want to disagree in any part, you can jump in too.
Sure, no, I mean, I think you're right, that you kind of want to eliminate some of that bias, and that bias can go both ways. I think that's true.
Yeah, we just don't, or it could be no bias, but because
Yeah.
we can't decisively know that, we have to stick with people that have zero chance of any prejudice towards your idea.
Yeah. The other thing that you can get with that as well is that sometimes you and friends and family, you have very easy ways of explaining things to them because you have shared experience. And you might struggle to explain it to somebody who has no shared experience with you. And that's when talking to people and trying to figure out a way to make them understand, that's part of the value that you're getting there. I always think back to when I used to work in sales and trying to think about like how do I talk to customers about what I'm trying to sell them so they understand they need to buy it? And oftentimes it would end up being talking about things that I didn't think were important that they eventually showed to be important. And that's kind of what customer discovery is about.
Okay. Now, I won't always just disagree with your opinion. Sometimes I'll disagree with the professor's opinion on something. and
That's
I'm
fine,
glad-
John.
No, this is fine. I'm glad why he brought this up, because the next slide that we're getting to, discovery is very different from selling. You mentioned a couple of real key things, because that's what we normally think about when we talk about discovery is we're going to share with people what we're thinking of doing. Right? We got to find a way to explain to them so they understand what it is, what our idea is, right? Just that's a logical way, isn't it? What if I told you that the best discovery is when the people that you're talking to at first have no idea what you're doing? And we'll get into the why part of it afterwards. So discovery, let's separate it from alliance completely. That selling is this end, and discovery is on this side. Selling is a lot of, we call it telling and selling, but it's presenting your idea. If you've presented projects before and stuff, you are really in that selling phase. But discovery is all about asking questions, listening to answers, and not really sharing your idea. Because once we share our idea, we have prejudiced the mind of the person, and what we want to find out is we want to hear things that come out first from them as what really are needs that they're looking for. So if we let's talk about the African continent food restaurant. So if we went and surveyed a bunch of people down in the halls and we asked them, what would you think about a restaurant that serves African food from all over the continent, just not from one country? Would you be interested in it? Well, there's probably a lot of people that would nod their head and say, yeah, that sounds great. So we might end up leaving thinking that that all these people are going to come and buy African food from us. But what if we did it in a different way, and we didn't let them know what it was that we were trying to create? What if we approached them and said, I'm just working on a university project right now. We're just trying to find out what people are looking for from eating choices on menus here in Kamloops that you might find are lacking. And what if you gave a whole number of different types of cuisine from different countries, different continents, and asked them, could you just list an order of which ones you feel were lacking, an order of which of your preference of ones that if we had them here, that you would choose to go to within the next month? It's a different approach. You're not even getting to talk about your idea. But what you're finding is you're finding true discovery where you're putting out the problem, or the problem that you believe, which is that people are missing a particular experience. And without giving them any suggestion, you're actually allowing them to choose and tell you what they feel is missing. Now, you may have a lot of people that tell you, yeah, if we had an African restaurant, we'd be really interested in going. That's great, because they picked that without you providing any suggestion whatsoever. Think about what other value could we get out of an exercise like this? And we're still just playing around with this particular suggestion. Yes, sir?
In case there is another cuisine that they mentioned, which ranks higher than African cuisine, I might just need to change my plan. Like, I might just have to change my idea and just go ahead with, creating another kind of restaurant. I still create a restaurant. I just change the theme of it. So it just helped me more.
I love it. The light bulb's going off in your head. That's exactly. Like, if we haven't fallen in love with our idea and already planned out our particular thing, instead, we can just move in the direction where our customer's going. Because if enough people are telling you that something is missing, and if it was there, that they would actually use that, now you're starting to see it's not about my idea, it's about your business model. So your idea can change, right? You can change at any time. All you have to do is say to a person, oh, I changed my mind. You say, well, why don't you start an African restaurant? Yeah, but I changed my mind. It's Greek food. Why? Well, because so many people want Greek food. So I changed it to what my customer wants. Right? Are you a good business person, or have you failed because you didn't go through with your idea? You're a good business person. That's right. You're making money. So, are you getting where I'm coming from on that part? Keeping yourself really flexible. Still doing this the wrong way, aren't I?
Yeah, it should be to the right, John. There you go.
It's horrible. It's a tough thing to learn.
It's also temperamental.
Okay. Yeah, so here, I can't wait to tell you my idea is a common thing when we think about discovery. I need to go and talk to as many people, and I need to tell as many people about what I'm doing. So it's kind of the opposite. What you want to start thinking about is what sort of questions, if you take your idea, what sort of questions can you ask that don't let your customer first know what it is that you're doing so that you can actually get some straight feedback on where their particular needs are. So in each of these cases, it wouldn't be hard to create a few different surveys of questions that you could do and get some unprejudiced advice. Anyone have, maybe one, if you're looking on the list, anyone want to just be really bold and throw out an idea of the type of questions you may ask in any one of these to get an unbiased? Yes, sir.
So, for example, for the camping one, so I should ask people like what sort of adventure you would love to go, and what sort of activity you want to do if I will take. So, what do you think? How much you can like spend on one of your trip, something like that. So I can get like what their budget is, what sort of activities more. Like I can change to fishing if people love more the fishing stuff or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. You go on. So you don't have to definitively have one question. Often you'll have a series, and you're going to try to gain some information out of what you out of the data that you're getting. So you're really probing for real problems, and you're not stopping at times with the answer when you get the answer to a question. Like you should have something that you're recording your data on. So you're asking similar questions, and you can get yours into a spreadsheet, so it makes some kind of sense to you data-wise. This is an important thing, the why part. So when a person gives an answer, what's often good is to just ask them a simple thing like, how do you mean? Or why is that important to you? Because it's the why part that drives your business model. So not just having sometimes the answer, but knowing what's behind the answer. Why do you choose a particular thing? Because if there's similar whys, you can sometimes get a little bit deeper into where their mind's coming from. So into the who and why part. What you're trying to do is design some kind of an effective call map. So a series of questions, and knowing where do you go if one question goes off in another direction. So maybe you're talking about an all-meat restaurant, and the person says, well, I'm vegan somehow in your early part, where you're probably not going to continue on a certain cycle of questions, but you might veer off into another way. So it's understanding where would you go to with the different questions, and also where do you want to ask why to try to find out the deeper meaning behind something. A way to categorize data, and then here's a big one here. How many people do you think you need to talk to in order to move ahead with your idea? Want to take a guess? 1? 1 million? Somewhere in between? What would you think? Where would you think you'd feel comfortable moving along?
100.
100? Okay.
20.
20?
Depends on how much, like what population you're trying to like generalize your data to.
Okay. All right. The truth is, there's no exact figure for it because different markets are different with where we're going to reach people at. But you generally want quite a large data set. If it's for simple things like restaurants, you might be looking at a few hundred people just to try to be able to determine a little bit of it. The other important thing here is it's also changing where you're getting the data from. So if we did all of our surveys in the Hall of Old Main, we would be getting a survey of people that take courses and wander through Old Main, which counts for something, but there might be some curiosity in your mind of saying, if I did the same questions and I did that over at Aberdeen Mall, or maybe over on the North Shore, would I get similar results? You may, or you may not. This is where you know, if you're investing a lot of your money or time into something, you might say, okay, well, this might take me another weekend, but I'll go and I'll see if I get similar results somewhere else. So it just helps you confirm, am I on the right track? Or if it was completely different, maybe I need a different set of questions to go with in my discovery. Does that kind of make sense a little bit? Right? I'm not trying to throw extra work on you for your business, but what I want to see happen is I want you to feel really confident because you've done good discovery and you're really confident to move ahead with your idea and turn it into a business. Do I need to go back to the same person? It's a question we get a lot with people asking. Sometimes if we're dealing with a fairly complex business that we're trying to get going on, you might ask them, hey, is it okay if I got your email and I emailed you back, if we get a little bit closer along on this idea, could I email you back and then share with you a little bit of how it's progressing so you can give me some feedback on it? You know, a lot of people will if they're the people that are interested in what you're doing. And often if you're kind of refining it a little bit, you get a chance to go back in and see them. Sometimes we'll turn those people into, and we'll actually call them advisors. If they're advocates and they really like what you're doing, maybe you're doing some real cool adventure thing. And when you've talked with them later, once you've shared it after you've had some of their initial questions answered so you didn't prejudice it, and they're so excited about you doing it, you could ask them if they could be on an advisory board. We can create any kind of board we want. It's not like a board of directors, but we could have people that we know are going to be our first customers. Sometimes those advisory boards that we set up end up being your champions that will go out and share with their friends through there because they want to get other people involved because they want to see this thing supported and moving along. So advisors can be really good. SurveyMonkey or anything along those lines. You know what I mean by SurveyMonkey, the ones that we get after we go somewhere? Why can't we trust everything based on that when we throw out surveys? Any thoughts onto why, other than them stealing all your data and knowing everything about you? But is there reasons why we shouldn't put all our faith in electronic surveys?
Well, the population chooses not to answer it.
Yeah. So we get data on people that take time to answer surveys, which is a portion. But we don't get data from people that don't want to answer. Also, we've learned over time that when people often don't respond when they're satisfied. They respond more when they're dissatisfied. That's why elections often have certain results because it brings up the people that are unhappy and the people that are just happy. They stay and do nothing. So we want to get as broad a base as we can. So often it means having to go out and do it over. So again, if you repeat the test and you get the same results, you're starting to get confidence that you're going into the right direction. Now back to an earlier comment that you had about you saying that you could switch to a different type of restaurant if people were looking at it. Discovery, often with entrepreneurs, leads them into the business that they're actually going to go and move towards. So I'll teach classes in the Generator every once in a while, full market validation courses, and you wouldn't believe how stressed students are coming in because they're straining their brain trying to figure out what the next business idea is going to be. Right? It's kind of like I got to sit here and I got to think, and I got to come up with an idea. When really, being a successful entrepreneur is very little about coming up with great ideas. It's way more about providing simple solutions to simple problems. Just finding out where's the problem and can I fix it. So often if you're doing discovery and you take the time to ask that next question, say it's with maybe a business group or a group of people that you think are going to like your particular activity, and they're not really into that, and you say to them, well, I'm still at an early stage where I'm trying to create a business that's valuable and meaningful to people and gives them something that they want. If you were to design the perfect business, what would it look like to you for adventure tourism or whichever way you're going, and why would that be important to you, that type of experience? So sometimes those questions can lead you off into a completely different direction that's driven by the customer, and you haven't had to think of anything at all. You just had to ask, you've had to listen, you've had to question, and then go out and test it. Because just because a few people give you that idea doesn't mean that you can turn it into a business yet. You'll go back into your circle, and you go through a process of validating that. And if you come to the part where people want what you have for an idea, that's really the time to move ahead. That's where you break that circle continuum and move away from it. I think we get that part enough that we can move a little bit on? Okay. All right, very cool. I'll go through this a little bit. This changes depending on your business. A lot of this is when you're doing B2B sales and you're going to try and get an appointment to move in and see people. So let's change from that to what we have for actual businesses here that we want to talk about. So we know that we have to talk to actual people in some way to engage. So let's get you to throw out some ideas for the board cafe, the restaurant, the food bike tour, and that wonderful new word, glamping. Where would we maybe find people in any kind of concentration that we feel that we could survey them with some sort of questions? It can be random order. We don't have to go down the list. Just start to throw some ideas out about where we might find some of those possible suspects.
Universities.
Universities, okay.
Events, adventure events, like it can be any event. Like,
An event that might be similar.
yeah.
Okay, great place to start. I'll help you along here, but I need you to get going as well. Maybe people going in and out of bike stores, or on the Juniper Hill doing that, just throwing it out.
People coming off the Rocky Mountaineer, so that train that comes through.
Yeah,
They might be interested in a lot of these.
right, okay. So when we're trying to find, good discovery, we're trying to find where we can get a good concentration of similar people. So we're not trying to find a needle in the haystack that might be interested. So if we can get a greater concentration, it certainly could help. What about restaurants? Where would we?
Why not just people walking around in downtown?
Yeah, nothing the matter with that at all. You could walk with your clipboard, and you could approach people. And it's a real easy thing to say. And I've told this to people that are graduated that aren't in university anymore. I'll say to them, just tell a little fib here. Tell them you're going to TRU and you're working on a project, and would you mind helping me out with this? Everyone will take the time to give you that answer because people are
You're not even lying this time.
Yeah. No, that's not what I would call lie. I call that just working
Little
things in your
maybe
direction. Yeah.
Thing.
But people generally want to help out if you approach them nicely. So if you do a simple ask that isn't for like a crazy amount of time, so you don't want to have like 50 questions, but maybe you've got 6 very important things that you want to find out about. And you say it's just going to take a couple of minutes here, and you throw a few of those questions out. You move on to the next one, and you keep it so that later at the end of the day, because you've forgotten a lot of what's gone on, you take that, you put it into some kind of a graph, and you see what real data tells you. Because sometimes what we remember are particular things, but then we look at the numbers, it's a bit different story. And then maybe after the one day of doing it, you say, okay, well, maybe I'm going to try, I was on Victoria Street this time, well, maybe I'm going to go and I'm going to walk Tranquille in their little downtown section. Is it similar for restaurant people? Maybe that Rocky Mountain area where people are coming off trains. In the bike park, we might try a few different bike things. And then in the glamping, we could be, well, I'm not sure.
True outdoors.
Yeah, there you go, true outdoors. People, you got to be a little bit affluent to go and spend there because but you're getting a person that will spend money on particular parts and things. You can also use social media, like when I say don't use just an electronic survey, but think about, you can go on to different groups on Facebook, on LinkedIn, and you can ask comments on these groups. You can say, I'm trying to get some feedback, and yes, you are going to get a specific thing, but now you're starting to gather data from a lot of different sources. So with your ideas, what I want you to start thinking is think about your idea, then convince yourself that you're not in love with your idea, and then find a test or a series of tests that you can try doing. Now, if you do it all on your own, you're pretty smart, you're probably going to come up with something that's half decent. But think about if you use this group dynamic. You've got people in here that you might see in other classes, you've got others. You start bouncing some things off other people. We're smart as one, but we're really intelligent when we're a group. So if you throw ideas and you get other people thinking about questions, other people thinking about where you might go to, right? You're just using your resources around you. Because entrepreneurship isn't about singular people being really smart and having the business thing. Some of the people who have been the most successful are those that just ask questions. They talk to people. They're very open-minded, and they don't try and keep things tight and secrets. Because in business, it's not about the idea. It's about how you actually can deploy the idea. Can you validate it properly? Can you turn it into a business model? Can you actually go out and sell your idea when you finally have it out there? So it's about so many other things. So if we're worried that if I share my idea about glamping, that 50 other people in my class are going to go out and there's going to be glamping opportunities everywhere, it's probably not going to happen because very few people put things into action. So if you're passionate about something, don't worry so much about that. You want to be more focused on making sure that your customer's there and less focused on what if someone takes my idea and quickly rushes out? Because if they don't do all your same homework, they're probably not going to stand as good a chance of getting it right. That make sense? Okay. So we can skip a little bit of parts, and the things that you're doing, you're probably not going to be doing phone surveys. In a lot of the business stuff that I work with companies on, they're talking to customers that could be anywhere around North America, so they're trying to find a way to email them or call them. A lot of the tourism stuff, the nice thing is that you get more opportunity to actually get out and see some of the people and chat with them. So use that. That is always the first choice, is direct contact with people. And this, you are being discovered all the time, and you are being tested on. McDonald's, every time it puts out the McRib, which still hasn't made it to their menu, they are once again experimenting to see, when I have it on our menu for a little while, do more people want it? Now, it might have failed the last 10 years, but the people that are high up in their marketing also understand that each test looks at the market at a particular point in time, and that next year, or 2 years, or 5 years later, some of these ideas that maybe didn't validate themselves that well at the time, all of a sudden the public is demanding more of it. Right? So ideas only get validated in business models for particular points, and things change along the way. So keep your ideas, tuck them to the side, and you can always try validating that same idea later and get a completely different result. E-bikes, look at what they've changed. I'm not skinny. I know we got a mirror at home. So I was terrified about, I used to bike a lot when I was younger. And all of a sudden these e-bikes came out. I started to see that people could go up hills. I've got this now, I can go to the North Shore, I can go back up to a place in Upper Sahali, and it's comfortable. So all of a sudden now an e-bike may have changed a lot of ideas, because a bike food tour 10 years ago in Kamloops might have said, God, I'll make it to the first place, I'll need a taxi from there. All of a sudden now that could be a leisurely thing. So different innovations or changes that happen in the marketplace can also affect your ideas. So all hope is not lost on some of your original ones. but also be open to change and move with where the rising tide happens to be. Okay, we can skip the sample conversation because that's off the regular part. If you have an iPhone or some kind of smartphone, capture a little of that. I mean, that's a very step-by-step way if you're going to be having some direct conversations with people. Just as a welcome. You're going to target a segment. You're going to talk about some kind of a story or set the context of your problem. You're going to try to get that problem ranked in some sort of order of what's most important to them. You're going to test it. And you're going to look at the results afterwards. And you're going to keep repeating that until you think you actually have it right. Everyone's got their smartphones done? Perfect. Oh, you're actually going to give them a copy of this, too.
I will, yeah. So, yeah, this will go up on Moodle afterwards.
I got you to waste a piece of film. That's old man humor. Okay, let's just move a little bit further to that stage of once we've gone through, let's pretend we've done wonderful customer discovery here, and that all of these ideas have been supported by the surveys that we did that made us feel that we're kind of ready to go and move a little bit further along. This is where we start now getting into that part about true validation. So true validation, we define it as when a customer can choose to either buy or not buy your product or service. So when we really know, like everyone can be telling us that they like something, but when they finally have the option to actually buy what we do, that's when we know for sure that they like it or they don't like it. Kind of get why? Because everyone can be excited about something but still not want to put their wallet out for it. So we want to try to get to that stage. So sometimes what happens is we get a slightly different reaction when our product is available or our service is available for sale. I'm trying to lead into our next part, which is all about minimum viable product. Because sometimes we've done everything and all of our testing worked great. We were unbiased. We didn't listen to any of our friends and family, even though they're upset with us for not doing that. But we talked to other people and they've all validated it. And now we're ready to go out and we're maybe a little bit unsure about why some that were really excited don't seem to be as excited anymore. But we've already built the restaurant, we bought the bikes, we've got the fancy stuff for glamping, and we've got board games coming out of our yin yang and a place to put them. But there's, we're still wondering why it's just not taking off. And we're thinking to ourselves, am I in a different conversation? Because I swear that the last time I talked to these people, they wanted what we have. So sometimes what happens is they've envisioned something that looks a bit different from how I describe. Sometimes how we tell a story, but the next person, if they were to repeat the story, it sounds a little bit different. So when we describe things, sometimes what they hear and what they see in their mind is different from what you're seeing in your mind for your final product. More often than not, your customer's vision is a little bit different than yours. Here's a true fact that might be a little bit scary. Almost never do we get our product 100% right the first time we introduce it. So if you knew that you almost had no chance that it was going to be perfect, what do you think we should do? Oh, trick question, right? Give up and go home?
No.
What else could we do?
Just take the feedback and modify or customize your product or experience according to that.
Yeah, but they told us that they liked it already.
Yeah, may I give an example?
Okay, yeah.
For example, if someone will take a survey about motorcycles, like should we have a big superbike motorcycle showroom in Kamloops? I will say yes because I love motorcycles. But when they will open that, I don't have money to buy it right now, so now I'm not interested. For 2-3 years.
You gotta buy a lottery ticket now, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, at that time maybe they'll come back to me and they say like, what's the problem? Why Kamloops is not buying like 15 grand motorcycles? Then I will say, I don't know. I don't have a big pocket right now. I can only afford a 4 grand motorcycle or 5 grand. And maybe more people will say that
Okay.
because in Kamloops we don't have like super duper millionaire people. So maybe then they will change it. Oh, it's a big example, sorry.
No, that's
So
a-
maybe they will change their motorcycle inventory from super expensive to like 4 or 5 grand motorcycles, and then maybe that will work out. So.
See, I like where your thought's going. Because not just it's motorcycles, but it's a very good point. You didn't know what your market was gonna be like at first, so you couldn't really tell until you actually offered the motorcycle out there. So what if you just bought one of those expensive motorcycles to put on versus your other person with that same idea that bought 50 and now has a real problem? Buying 50 motorcycles would be kind of like getting your whole business ready and not having the ability to change. So what you've just described is what we call minimum viable product, which is the smallest thing that we can do to test everything that we've heard up until this point that is positive towards what we're doing, knowing that we probably aren't 100% right, but giving us lots of window of time and money that we still have to be able to get it right and turn it into a thing. So MVP, or minimum viable product. Early adopters are always looking at people that want to try something. They're okay a lot of times with just a very simple version of something, just so that they could test it out and see what it could be like. So a minimum viable product is, it just has the key features and no more that allow you to actually test your service and see how it resonates with those people that are willing to try something that's new because they want to give it a shot. You got your hand going there in the back.
Going back to the question that you asked.
Yeah.
Into this, we can probably talk about video game consoles, especially the PlayStation. They're quite notorious for coming out with these bulky consoles, and then a few years down the line, they come up with a slimmer version with the exact same technology. And PlayStation has done that continuously from the PlayStation 2 onwards. Fat PlayStation 2, slim. The glossy PlayStation 3, a matte PlayStation 3. Coming up with PlayStation 4 and then the PlayStation 4 Pro. And now they're announcing PlayStation 5, which is quite bulky, but with lots of ventilation in it. And like, PlayStation is quite notorious for doing that.
I don't have an answer. You know, it's going to sound sad. I have yet to play a video game. I've seen people play them. I know it's a really big thing. So I don't quite understand the complete science. I'm going to plead ignorance a little bit about where the rationale might be in it, or maybe there isn't really good rationale too. So if we're getting back into the minimum viable product for anything or any service, it's what can we do that gives the simplest part that we can actually offer someone to either pay money or to give feedback. Sometimes companies offer freemiums or a free version of something. Why are they doing that? Like, you can't make money doing that. But a lot of times, all they want out of it is that feedback loop to see what people like about it, what they don't, because they know that you're not going to succeed with getting people to pay for something if you don't have it right the first time. Or they'll try something that's a little bit more at a discounted rate to get people along, because part of the other value that they might have called profit, they would rather have in the form of feedback that's helping them adjust their service to get it right, so people will want to buy more of what they have or buy their service more often. So you can get away with reducing down the features, because when you're coming up with something new, a great new tourism service, there's always people, we call them the early adopters, the people that jump on things when they're new. Right? Because they're excited, they like change, and they're doing things. They're the people that go out when the new iPhone comes out, or the AirPods or other things. They're the first people that seem to get everything. You have that in tourism, you have that in restaurants, you have people that every time a new place gets opened up, they're talking to their friends because they want to get out there first, they want to talk about it. So these are the people that are going to try your service at a very minimal rate to see if you've got it right. So who knows? We could probably reduce some of these into a minimum viable product just to test a few things out, couldn't we? Food bike tour, we might not have to supply the bikes, but maybe we organize through a bike club, got some social media going, something else where we didn't spend a whole lot of money and we got it going slowly, just to sort of get some feedback. You might want to find out, do people like to hit 2 restaurants on a tour? Do we want to hit 5 or 6? We don't know, but if we get a few of these things going and we start to listen to our feedback, we might start to know what is a good route. What's the optimum number of people to have on one of those tours? What type of restaurants and in what order maybe does it make sense? Because before that, we're guessing. We know that people said to us they would like to try this, but we haven't figured out the details yet. So it's in the details often that our minimum viable product helps us figure out those parts so that we start to align our business model with what they were thinking in their head when they talked to us about the idea. So we're starting to get that feedback loop going. So everything that we see here, all of your business ideas that you haven't shared, you've got to now go into that next step is, how can we do a good test? Because we don't want to spend all the money and all the time and find out that we haven't actually got to exactly what they want or close enough to it that it's repeating often enough and making us money. If we just had a little longer, if we just had a little bit more money, maybe we would have got to profitability. So minimum viable product is a great way to extend your runway, so to speak, and get a chance to talk to a lot more people about it. So we often call MVTs mechanisms to create meaning. We're trying to get some meaning out of these tests where no real meaning exists. So if we're creating these new tours, new restaurants, well, there's not a lot that we can base it off of. So we're trying to find some kind of meaning that we can understand. And we're trying to get a meaningful set of features and lessons that we can learn from those customers. And then hopefully we can define that real true product strategy that we need for it to succeed. Are you kind of getting that business isn't as much about luck as it is about some of these other things? It's true. Luck comes into play, but a lot of luck that you see are steps like this. It just seemed like a person had a great idea, but you don't always see what happens before. So you're looking at a larger version or vision, and you're trying to get learnings, and then you're figuring out a proper method. Let's look at some real great examples here. When I move it, kind of cuts through. So a few different ways. These are companies that you probably know, and these are actual MVTs. So one way you can do it is just by reducing the amount of features that you're making available. So look at the first iPhone. No find feature and no cut and paste feature, but that was your iPhone, right? So you didn't give a whole lot of features. Virgin Airways, Mr. Branson, an airline with only one flight and no routing systems. That was their MVP. That's where they started from. So it wasn't a whole bunch of luck. They got feedback from their loop. Another way is visualizing that idea. I mentioned it last time, and we checked an ethics committee isn't going to come down and attack you for it. But a visualization idea, is that a nicer way of saying not telling the truth completely?
Sure.
So visualization is putting an idea out to get some feedback on. So Launch Rock, which has kind of disappeared now, but they've just created pages on a website with coming soon, because they wanted to get engagement, see what people were picking and choosing. A lot of websites are out there and do that. Dropbox, who's heard of Dropbox? There we go. Dropbox did not exist when they sold Dropbox. Why would you build a technology and invest all the money if you didn't even know if people wanted it? So all they did, they put out the idea, okay? They did a video, they told people it worked, because they figured out there's enough smart people that could make it work if people wanted it. And they got so much feedback and people wanting to buy it, that even before code had been written, investors were willing to give them the money. It wasn't because they had a good idea, but what they had done is they had done really creative discovery and minimum viable product, which proved that people wanted it. So money's going to flow because demand was there. What other service is doing that right now that we hear about? Where people haven't really built anything yet, people give money?
Real estate.
Okay. No? It's that tech one. The name's on my tip of my tongue. You don't know that one where they go on TV and they show you an idea? They show you something they're going to build?
Shark Tank?
No, are you talking about like Kickstarter?
Yes, that's
Okay,
it right
yeah.
there. Kickstarter.
Yeah.
Kickstarter is a perfect example of MVP. Why? Because they put out something that you haven't built yet. And they find out, like they show all the features, they've made one, right? So they can show you on TV. If enough people pre-order, they go ahead and make it. And if no one wants it, or very few people want it, what happens? No, they return your deposit and they don't go ahead and build it. Why? Because who wants to build something, even if enough people gave you money, if there's not enough people who want to buy it to continue it on in the end? So really that thing is working. You know what a lot of people do is they watch Kickstarter and find out if something, a lot of people want something, they make another version similar to it, right? Because it's already been validated in a broad sense. So that's this visualization as a tool for validating your idea. And then we call it simple sites, Flintstone backend. So this is doing it all the manual way. If you look at Yahoo, 2 students put it together. It was a list of their favorite links. That's pre-Google. Right? So just really simple. Groupon, which is a coupon site. It was just a blog about group buying, and that's where it evolved from. This grocery shopping that we see now online to get going, when a lot of these things started and got out, there was no technology behind it. Right? You had a person answering a phone or answering an email, and then people running around, not the ones that are in the stores, but you had others going around and shopping and picking up all these items and driving down to drop the stuff off. Why? Because if they could prove there was demand, you could actually get programmers to do that other side, or you could approach stores to do that model inside. So all these things are ways of testing to find out if they're right. Now, people could have just spent all the money and gone ahead and done that, but you probably have a lot more failures in the world. And when we see a lot of failures, often it's because people haven't taken the time to really test out, validate, and make something now that a person can buy. So when we find, so if we can get our service idea out to people faster to buy, to do some pre-bookings to get that going, then the quicker we can find out if we've got the right offering. So it's not summer season, but you may give a discount for glamping for the first 50 people that book on for the first June glamp. Why? Because you got 4 months to find out if there's a lot more people to do that. And you haven't gone out to necessarily say build or buy all that stuff, but what you're trying to find is when people believe that they can actually purchase something, that's when true feedback starts to come. So think of ways that you can take your idea that's in your mind, or 4 of you that have it up on the board, and start thinking that if you had all the discovery that went in the right direction, how could I make something in a smaller version to test it out and see if people are actually willing to part money for what you have. A credit card speaks. Some of you got your minds rolling, I can see.
Sampling?
Sampling, yeah. Sampling are great ways to find out. So there's all different creative approaches that you can do, and that you have plenty of time to do to make sure that you get that right. Before I move off of this slide, any questions? No? Okay. Okay, so we've completed that main part of what we were trying to get through. We've got a little bit more time, and I want to go into just a little bit of business modeling. So this is not building a business plan, right? That log figure. you don't want to take a whole course to do that. What if I could show you that with 9 blocks, you can describe virtually any business? Do you believe me? Have I lied to you yet? Maybe a little bit in talking about a few of those things, but didn't lead you too far astray. Okay, so business model describes the rationale of how an organization creates, delivers, and captures value. So in other words, a business model describes all the parts necessary in a company to make monies. Okay? So we have our business, but it's the actual model of how it works that determines what's going to happen out of it. So anyone seen a business model canvas before? No? Wow, okay, cool. These are fairly new in the big picture of things. This is probably, what, 20 years or less?
Yeah, at least less. I'd say less.
Yeah, it could even be less. So businesses were really hard to describe. A lot of times when you get going and you got a large company and people say, well, how does it all work? How does your model work? And you look at you and say, well, I can't really describe it. We need hours. And you might not have the smarts to actually really understand the whole thing. A big reason why we couldn't explain businesses was there wasn't a simple way to put it out. Now, I sit on different boards, and I get involved in sitting with a lot of financial statements with companies or organizations. And the way that we would typically look at businesses is on a balance sheet or a year-end sheet. And what we're doing is we're looking at what happened. We're not looking at what's happening, and we're certainly not looking at projecting something forward. So a business model canvas allows you to take the 9 key components that happen in any business and organize them in such a way that you can describe it fairly easily. So we have here, we'll draw a line in the middle here. And what we'll say is that side, which would be your left, my right. Is that, yeah, okay. Okay. So your left is efficiency, and your right is value. So right here in the middle, we have our value proposition, which we talked about the other day. That comes down from your positioning statement. We have our customer segments, which those are line 1 of your positioning statement. It's who are those segments of people that we're looking to sell to. Customer relationship is a relationship that they particularly have with our products. Some products that when you have it, you have to buy certain other services from them would have a relationship that we call sticky. They can't leave yours easily. Okay, channels, those are the ways that we get our product to our customer, our product or service. So channels could be, in your case, they could be directly you selling your tours or getting it out there, but maybe some of your channels, if you were a restaurant, might be a coupon book. If you were in another tourism part, it may be a travel agent or another booking source that does that. So that's all the ways that we get our product or service out to our customer. Bottom, revenue streams, which is really straightforward. If we now look on the efficiency side, we have the activities. So what are the key activities that our business model needs to do in order to run? What are the partners that we need in order for our business to happen? If you were an airline, you would need the fuel place. You would need the mechanics repair or various other things. So in every business, we have partners of some sort that we rely on. Okay? What are the key resources that we need? So in the e-bike tours, we probably need e-bikes. In the cafe, some of the game companies would be really important to us because we rely on them continuously creating new, engaging games for people. Okay? And then we have our cost structure, which is how we kind of put that together so it makes sense financially. Doesn't matter what business you have or what idea. These are just the basic things that happen in every business. No matter how large or how small, these activities are going on. Inkjet printer, let's take an example. Okay. $120 for a printer? Well, $19.99 we wish nowadays. It's more like the cartridges cost more than the printers if you end up having to buy them. But let's use this as a quick example. So we take the inkjet printer, We look at value proposition, you can print. Okay, customer segments. You got consumers that need to print stuff. How do they get it to people? Well, they get it to people through retail stores. Okay, part of their revenue structure. Okay, you sell the printer for one low price. Another value proposition is the cartridges. So they don't just sell printers, they sell the cartridges. But look at a funny thing here that happens. Okay? Frequent in-cartridge replacements, high margins. Right? Where are they making their money? They're making it on that. Okay, so key resources, patents and the brand. So they got patents, so someone can't just make another cartridge, it's got to be that particular cartridge. Okay? So you have to buy from them. Key activities, R&D, so designing them, marketing, getting people to know about that particular printer and product, and the logistics of how do we get it to all the places that are going to turn around and sell it. So that's a big part of their activities. Partners, the people that manufacture, so these might be designed and created here, but they might go overseas to actually be built. Okay? And then the other partners are retailers. If you didn't have retailers put it in the shelves, no one's going to have you stick it in the mail and get it off. Nowadays it's a little bit different because you got Amazon and they'll take stuff anywhere. And then cost structure, marketing, R&D, manufacturing, and logistics. So that's a company that could be Canon printers, or who knows what kind. But that's really their model of how it works. Oh, there's another item that they can sell too. Cards, stickers, all the other things, and even higher margins yet, because only those cards fit through the printer. Okay, so if we're trying to tell our story, so now you've come up with your idea. We've got this little bit of extra learning that we're giving you that's going to be in the sheets that are available on Moodle. So say you took one of these canvases, like you'll have there. You can get them online. You just use this Google, and you'll find a ton of places where you can print something like this, or you can do it electronically. You could take a lot of the stuff that you'll have already done in some of these exercises, and you can think about some of the other parts of what you need for your tours. And then you can put them into the slots, and then if you wanted to tell a really easy story, you can start with, who is our customer? What is our value that we give to them? How do we get our service to our customers? What's the relationship that we have with our customer? What are the different revenue streams? What activities are we going to need to do? What resources are we going to need to do those activities? What are our partners going to look like? And finally, how do all our costs fit into place? That's it. Every one of your ideas in your mind can go into something as simple as this, and you could describe it to people 3-4 minutes. And it's very logical. So if you can describe your business model easily, it also means you can get feedback very easily. And if you get feedback, you can adapt and you can change it so it becomes more efficient. So what used to be difficult in trying to share how your business works is now really quite simple with a tool like this. So maybe you have a friend of yours that's in finance or accounting, and they look, as you've explained your model to them, they say, oh, you know what, you could save a little bit more money by doing this or by doing that. You go to another friend that's in marketing, and they say, oh, well, here's a few ways that we can advertise differently. And maybe someone in supply chain says, oh, didn't you know that there's these other channels and ways that we can get stuff to you? So all of a sudden, you've got more people helping you define and improve your business model. This is like why I couldn't sleep last night. It was so exciting just thinking about this and seeing your reactions. Okay, so really this canvas is taking your hypothesis and you're sort of creating it into fact, but just because we put it on paper, is it fact? Or when does it become fact?
When we finally sell it.
Yeah, okay, yeah, when we sell it or proved out. So to begin with, we usually have the things, we'll call them guesses, but they're very educated guesses. And they're everywhere. Because right now, when we're thinking here, we're guessing about a lot of stuff, right? But slowly, we change guesses to facts, right? Why? Because we go out and we try validating our product. We start hearing what they have to say. We talk to different suppliers, so we find out one that we thought we could buy from, we can't, but then we found 3 others that we can. So the way that we, here, I'll go back one. So the way we usually do an exercise like this, if I'm working with a company, is I'll get 2 sets of sticky notes, because first they'll create their business model canvas, and I'll get them to put all the different things in all the slots just with a sticky note that you can pull off again. And they get it all populated, then they go and explain how the whole thing works. And then I'm the bad guy. I'll hand them in 2 different colors of sticky notes. And I'll say, I want you to go back. I want you to pull your stuff off again, and I want you to use one color for the things that you know are 100% proved out, and you put them in one color. And then in the things that you still need to prove, you put them in another color. So now you look at your board, and what can you do? You look at it and you say, oh, okay, well, the stuff I really need to start working on are the things that I need to prove to get it right. And then as you change colors to the things that now you've proved through your different testing, you're probably at a closer stage to be able to move along and push ahead with your business. It's not that difficult. You know why most people don't go into it, don't succeed? So just don't do the simple things. Because these are, none of this stuff is really difficult. You could have been a high school class. All of this would have made sense. So it's your ability then to action it. So you guys have a wonderful opportunity that's been given to you here in this tourism management thing, with the ability to put a bunch of time, put a bunch of work into here, and have the ability to action your idea and try to create a business out of it that could become something wonderful for yourselves. These are rare opportunities. You have it, and I think you get a whole bunch of other help along the way, don't you? If they,
We've got a few check-ins. We're going to talk about that here in a minute. Yeah.
Because I don't want to give anything ahead of time. But
There is the opportunity for help. And I would also point out, I'll just let you show John that you, John would like you guys to connect with him on LinkedIn, which I think is a good idea.
Well,